Jillian, I have a question, if you don't mind, because Cheryl mentioned that her daughter not only estranged her, but other family members that have anything to do with her. My daughter did the same thing. She's in no contact with anybody that has anything to do with me. Can you speak to that?
At least for myself, I can. And yes, I did the same exact thing. My mom, like, right, the night that everything had gone down with like what caused the estrangement, my grandma was there. I had like really felt like she was on my side, like really seeing these things. And one day coming home from school, my dad and I drove by her ranch, and there was my mom and stepdad's cars parked there. And it felt like such a betrayal.
Aleia unfortunately could not join us. She double booked herself. She's just so overwhelmed right now. So she's in Wisconsin at helping a friend. So it's the four of us today as I continually read comments on YouTube. And that is sometimes we're just damned if we do and damned if we don't. And I hear parents saying this a lot on the different channels or parental estrangement groups. So I wanted to discuss that a little bit today. Last time we shared something that I read, and I'm going to share this with you guys again because this is what somebody made a comment on. At the end of our last discussion, I read this. A few things your mom may have not told you. She loves you more than herself. She has watched you while you were sleeping. Every time you are upset, her heart sinks. You make her life meaningful. She thinks you're one in a billion. You are the best thing that has ever happened to her. Um, and I know I got a yip from Cheryl on that, and I think a lot of parents, just even through the pain, do still resonate with a lot of those feelings. Um, so I want to now share one of the comments that I got based on this. So M. King, among many other nasty things, my mom told me she will never love me and she always hate me. With that in mind, when I hear what is said here, it sounds to me like white lies designed to make you and your adult children feel better. So put in the chat if you guys want to contribute just your thoughts about that. And Jillian, do you have anything that you want to add or kind of?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is gonna kind of be one-sided since Aaliyah's not here. But with that, like I do resonate with that because my mom said some really horrible things to me when I went no contact with her. And I think like that's in a way a defense mechanism, and not everybody's relationship with their parents are gonna be the same. Not everybody's estrangement is one size fits all. And sometimes that we really do just need to take a step away, and people like parents even are really just mean. I think a lot of what is said in those moments after estrangement and in those moments after we cut the contact, it's acting out of pain. It's reverting back to like our inner child who's hurt. And that doesn't, like, we don't outgrow that, especially if we don't heal that. So a lashing out, like throwing a tantrum, is completely to be expected, in my opinion, at least. Um, Coming from as somebody whose mom, like, one of the things she told me right after I estranged to her, or like estranged from her, was that she wished she'd aborted me. And like, that will really mess up anybody at any age. And I was just 15 years old trying to do something that, for me, for once. And so, in my opinion, like, that came from a place of hurt from her. And we can't really take those things and internalize them. And that's the burden that we have to carry, where it is like, okay, understanding that this is coming from a place of hurt. This is coming from a place that I didn't create. And it doesn't reflect on me as a person to choose myself and have somebody be upset about that. It's like drawing boundaries with any other person who has narcissistic traits or has like really selfish traits in them, where I think that, yeah, the people are gonna lash out. And if that's the first boundary that you've ever drawn or they've ever had drawn on them and held, it's not going to be pretty a lot of times.
So what was your feeling after I read the poem from, you know, I didn't write it, you know, I didn't write those nasty words. I'm never gonna say those things. But what was, when I'm reading that, what were you thinking about that?
It brought me back to when we had our little tailgate on Christmas because I was feeling lonely and like, you know, it was the first time I'd been alone, and it reminded me that like, you know, the things that you guys told me where you're like your mom is still there, like she still cares about you and loves you, and I found that in you guys as well, where she may not be in this corporeal realm anymore, but it made me think of the love and like unconditional caring that I find in others that remind me of her. When she was good, she was great, but when she was hurting, she was really, really mean, and that sucks.
And that overrides everything.
At times, yeah, because I think as humans, like just speaking from a psychological standpoint, we don't like to think and remember the bad times. We all like to really glorify or like romanticize things that happen to us, no matter what relationship we have with that person. And when it hurts, we're just like, "Ooh, this doesn't feel good. I don't like feeling of that. I don't like remembering it. I don't like thinking about it." And then something happens that hurts you so incredibly deeply that you just can't help but think about it.
Yeah, those hurtful words too, I always think of as a kind of a magnifying glass, because then you start to look through things that trigger you or come up through that lens, and it's magnification. It makes everything else seem even much more worse than it might really be.
It definitely it does taint like everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you, and he commented on a few of the videos, and his other comments had to do with, I'm not buying that you've changed. If you tell me you've changed, you've done all this work, I'm not going to buy it anyway. So is that kind of how you feel as well, as far as, you know, sorry, the toothpaste is out of the tube, it's a little too late?
Just based off of that one comment alone, I just sense so much pain in this person. And like, you know, of course you're not gonna believe it if nobody's ever done that work for you or themselves. Like, and that's what kind of the feeling that I'm getting. I don't know the other comments, but as somebody whose mom refused to work on herself or like even really see anything that she did as wrong or selfish or like, you know, cool, I get it. You didn't want to die alone. You ended up doing that anyway. Um, yeah, I wouldn't have believed it if she said she was doing that work because I've never seen her do it. She's never actually done it. And yeah, so coming as a person whose mom never really did try, then sure, I would definitely look at our group and be like, ugh, okay, yeah, this is all super performative. But I know that I see the work that's being done. I see the fact that we're able to have the hard conversations. And I see that like the encouragement to speak up and be like, no, I don't agree with that. And the openness in order to see like, wow, you know, maybe I did like, I'll bring it back to like my mine and shares like little thing that we had. Like I didn't agree that it was a proper form of like recognition, and Cher was super open to that. On the other hand, we have mothers and fathers and grandparents who refuse to actually do that work, refuse any self-reflection. And you know, if I was in that situation again, I wouldn't believe us either. I would totally believe it was all nonsense and BS because nobody had actually done that work or tried. So I see that as coming from like a very strong point of pain and reflection on the fact that like, yeah, you're not going to believe it, especially if it hasn't been done.
Carol?
Ooh, there's so much in this. So the first thing that came to mind from the gentleman's response was there's no one size for estrangement. Like I also see his pain. I feel his pain. And that's why he's saying that. But I don't think he has it in his mind that, not every estrangement follows that guideline. And
Well, I don't think he's necessarily saying, speaking for all. I mean, he's definitely just saying, my mom said this. She told me she will never love me and she will always hate me.
but in some of his other comments he's like, I feel you guys are all not
Yeah.
taking account. That's what
Well,
that's
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And and to me, like, the word that resonates is mean. Okay. So in the whole beginning of, my whole estrangement, I was like, I wasn't mean, I don't have a mean bone in my body. And then listening to the things that my daughter was saying, and then I read all these articles, and I have come to realize that, and Lisa, you and I have discussed the guidelines that we grew up with in our generation regarding abuse, physical, emotional. It was very clear cut to us. It was, things that you would be put in jail for today, from our parents, right? But then the way we raised our children and lost control sometimes, to my daughter, yelling was mean. Saying things that were hurtful was mean. But in her mind, that was abuse. And through all my denying, now I see, yes, that to her is abuse. Whereas I might not think it was, or that it, fit the guidelines. So yes, if I ever get the chance to speak with her again, and we get to either just move forward without discussing anything, or we get to discuss, I definitely want her to know that. But I also have to say, I still, think it has to be work on both sides. And obviously I'm doing a lot of work on myself and learning things, but there were very mean and hurtful things said to me as well that I don't understand. I guess as a mom, we're expected that we have to brush it off. We just have to move on. And, when my ex-husband passed away a couple of years ago, she said at the funeral, I wish it was you. I wish you had died. I wish you were never my mother. I wish, I had been adopted or put in foster care. I mean, these were things that very hurtful. But so I was just thinking the other day, if a mom went no contact with a child, for all the same reasons, it would be abandonment. But yet when a child does it to a parent, it's not called abandonment. It's called no contact. So these are kinds of things that I've been mulling over in the past few days. And I guess his comment kind of brought that out.
I disagree, because it's not called abandonment if you're leaving a completely abusive situation. It's not called abandonment if you have a severely handicapped child that you put into a higher care facility. It's not called any of that. When we were taking care of ourselves, especially as adult people, we have accountability. We have the fact that, like, okay, I don't like the fact that this person is saying these things to me. I don't like that this person is treating me that way. And unfortunately, I'm going to cut this person out of my life. Doesn't matter if they're your child or not. You fulfilled your duty as a parent to raise them until the age of 16 or 18 with as much love as you can possibly fathom. And if you truly fulfilled that, sure, we all mess up. Sure, we're all human and we all have our fallacies, but no, I completely disagree with that statement, because I don't think that it would be abandonment for you to choose yourself if somebody is truly treating you wrong. And that's a lot of times what this estrangement is. It could still be called estrangement. You're still no contact with that person. It's just a different type of relationship. And I'm sure there's plenty of them out there, especially from the things that I read. Like, it's not just called estrangement on the child's part, because it's not just the child who's choosing this. There's still the actions put behind it lead somebody to this. And in this man's instantiation, it's the fact that his mom is so freaking mean. The words you say affect people. And now we're finally getting to generations where we focus on mental health, where we focus on, yeah, maybe the things that I say do affect other people. So no, you can still choose to not be a part of that person's life, still care about them, and not have that be just like, woe is me, poor me, I'm abandoning, now I'm the bad guy because I chose myself. No, you're the only one putting that standard on you.
I want to, and I want to share Tammy's comment in just a minute. I want to take this outside of the parent-child relationship for just a minute, because we experience relationships in every different dynamic in every area of our life. And say, somebody at the office, that you only see, let's say 8 hours a day. People don't even work in offices 8 hours a day anymore, but let's say everybody works in an office 8 hours a day, and somebody says something mean. You just choose to probably stay away from that person. You don't go out with them after work or this sort of thing. But you still have to get your work done or whatever, be civil with them. Now, and even in dating and relationships, somebody says something flat out mean to you, you're done with that relationship. You leave it, you break up with them. And this is all considered very normal. It comes down to the person, the individual, and that if you say something mean to one person, you're going to say something mean to another. Okay, now I want to defend parents for just a minute, because parenting is a selfless job and it's 24/7, and you don't get the breaks, and you don't get to choose most of the time, when you're having a bad day, you don't get to put parenting on pause. You don't. So I've been in relationships with people and heard my parents fighting, and they say, I hate you. Yesterday it was I love you. Today it's I hate you. And yes, that's very difficult to reconcile. But as you mature in age, you start to just recognize that it's that person's stuff. I've apologized to my kids for not being able to hold it together 24/7 when I absolutely needed to for their sake. But I couldn't do it. I was tired. I wasn't feeling well. And that's when I lost it. And that's, where we talked about it. And Cheryl and I've said, well, what about yelling? Is that abuse? So it's just in those moments that we always wish we could take back, whether it be at work, whether it be in romantic situations. We say things, we do things because we're human. We're not at our best 100% of the time. I don't know anybody who can be. But now we have to live with the repercussions of our actions. And that's so great, especially when it's a child. If it's a job, forget it, you found a new one. Was a lover, forget it, you found a new one. But if your children, yes, you thought they were always going to be there. And then when that happens, without the opportunity to be able to discuss or share like we're doing. I mean, Jillian, I would love it if my daughter came to me and said, no, you're wrong. Let me tell you how it is. I would give it anything for that conversation. And now, I mean, before the estrangement, I would have taken it differently. I probably would have pushed back. What are you talking about? Just like Cheryl said, what are you talking about? But now I would listen and take it on very differently. And I think a lot of parents would, and that's my point. We're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. Even if we're changing, even if we're doing the work, with this no contact rule, there's just no opportunity to work through anything.
I think that, at least in my opinion, and speaking for myself and people that I also know are estranged, no contact is like the last and final straw. It's not like it just comes out of the blue. There were signs. There was things that you could see. There were things that you were doing, and the work should have been done during those times. Like much like with Aleia and her mom, where, when her mom was doing the work and she could see like the progress that was being made, she was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like maybe things are actually changing. And then it just regressed right back into it. So there are opportunities and there are times where it's like, yeah, like you can like you can have this opportunity to like work on it. And then I think the most jarring thing about estrangement when that like decision is finally made is because then it's like, oh well, I had all this time and like just give me the time to work on it. And it's like, you already had it. You already had all this time. And the time was there. You just, what you did with it is the problem, because it was nothing. If that makes sense.
I'm going to read some of the comments. And then I want to hear what you guys have to say. So Tammy says, that makes me fully more connected to understanding that their side is valid. And we don't get to decide. We didn't hurt our adult children. I accept I must dive deeper into what my daughter feels, whether I agree or not necessarily. I know I hurt her and I didn't feel that I alone damaged her, yet I cannot control her dad's side of it. I must face me. Yeah, we all have to look at ourselves in the mirror. That's what I was saying. Then Dina said, I took a hiatus from meeting with my children for Sunday dinner, and that was something that was so hurtful to them. My son left my home in rage after I asked what was going on with what I was saying that was causing tears to well up. His response was, it's rage, and he left. I was in the habit of reaching out to my kids to fix the hurts, but he was 35, and I expected that as an adult, he would revisit the conversation. He did not, and when I finally reached out, pointed out the exact number of days, I had gone silent. So as a child, if parents go no contact, is something held against us? He pointed out the days of silence from my end. Yeah, I think we were kind of discussing that too. What if a parent does it? Ruth, you're muted again. Okay, I just unmuted you.
She's remuted again.
Sorry, I keep muting my dogs. They keep barking.
That's all right.
Yeah, I can see both sides. I understand absolutely what Jillian's saying and what Cher's saying. I think there's a component, like it would be seen as abandonment if we left and didn't try to make a contact later. If we just completely cut them off, I think it would be called abandonment. I'm thinking of Marsha Linehan's abandonment. I don't know, Jillian, in your psych stuff, have you heard about Marsha Linehan and all that? I figured you had. But you know, it's the same thing. Like we're all using different definitions. We're using terms and we're not defining them. And somebody may see abandonment as, defined abandonment as one thing, and somebody else define it as a totally different thing. So I think that's a lot of the problem is we have these terms and they're almost interchangeable too. And so that doesn't help with our communication at all, which is exactly why we're doing what we're doing, is because, bringing us all together for the roundtable helps us clarify a lot of things. And it's unfortunate that we don't have that with whoever we're estranged from. But yeah, I wish in the work I've done, I've thought, oh gosh, I would love for my daughter to see who I am today and be able to sit down with me and for her to say things and me not be defensive. That's what I tended to do, is try to explain and shoot my side and stuff. But so I think it would be very different now. But I don't know how to even make that happen and let her know it would be different.
But when Jillian was saying, about the parent needs to do the work, and Aleia has shared that when her and her mom were reading, self-help books together, it really made a big difference. I was a quote unquote conscious parent for many years. Did I do it all the way through perfectly? Absolutely not. But my spiritual journey began at a very young age, and I read self-help books like a personal growth junkie. And I taught my kids and raised them in those principles. But I knew as a parent, I wasn't going to do it 100% right, which is why I made different choices for them. I put them in the best private school, a loving Montessori school, to where I know that they would just feel love and nourishment from school and teachers, because I knew I was going to drop the ball. I mean, just everything that they went to a spiritual center in which they were taught principles of meditation and open-mindedness and effective communication, because I knew I wasn't going to do it right. I mean, I was lucky to be able to give them such a good foundation for these things. And yet here I am. And I think Jillian said some things. I mean, looking back on it now, I saw the signs. I saw it coming. And at the time, I wish I even knew what the word estrangement was, or I wish that I understood that this could have been a possibility. Never in my mind would I have ever thought that I would have been estranged from this kid who we talked for 2 hours every single week, mostly laughing. It would have just never registered. But now looking back on it, those times of her frustration with me, or her, where I hurt her without realizing I hurt her, I wish I could have just stopped and said, did I just poke you there? Did I say something wrong? You know, for example, when Cheryl mentioned, and I've done this with my daughters, you know, when you stop them from going out the door wearing something that isn't flattering, it's not that you think they're fat, you think they're this, or you think they're that. It's because you yourself did it. You snuck out of the house wearing something that wasn't very flattering, and you experienced something as a result of it. Maybe it was some unwanted male attention or something, or maybe a girlfriend made fun of you. But as a parent, as a mom, that's what's in the back of our mind, is rethink that outfit. But she very well could have been hearing, my mom thinks I'm fat.
Mm-hmm.
So we come at this with so many different intentions.
Yeah. And none of us ever had the intention of estrangement. That was not our intention. And I could resonate with what you said about your daughter. You talked to her for, you know, a couple hours at a time. And I know my daughter, I felt like was like, she would reach out to me to help her do something, or to come over and, you know, watch the boys or whatever. And just different things that made me think she was really dependent. And I wanted her to be independent. So, you know, I wonder how much, what I could have done differently. I don't try to hang out there very much in my head, but, you know, what could have been, if I had known what estrangement was and what all that was, the impact of that, yeah, I would have done things differently.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Well, and in every area of life, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I would have done business deals
Mhm.
differently. I would have done dating differently. I mean,
Yeah,
just every
definitely.
area of life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheryl, you were going to say something?
Well, like Dr. Ruth said before, you know, the words have so many different meanings at terms. And so just the word estrangement and the word no contact have such gradations in them. So, you know, estrangement, I understand. I mean, I have had to do it with a few people. A few people did it with me that weren't my daughter. But it was always the intention of stepping back, letting the person know that what they were doing did not feel good, was not right. And, you know, they or I did not want that in our lives, but with the intention of someday possibly getting back together. And no contact is the same. You know, I see where some people need to absolutely have no contact, with the idea of working on themselves, the other person working on themselves. But then there's the one that I don't agree with, which is no contact forever. And in your, you know, in that person's mind, that no, absolutely, it's done, zero, no contact. But along with that is, because in my daughter's case, it's punishing anyone that wants to have contact with me. and making it a rule that, aunts and uncles, if you are having contact with my mother, you're out of my life forever. Her sister cannot mention my name. Like Voldemort from Harry Potter, shall not be named. And to me, that's the part that, I just do not agree with. And I also am not allowed with anyone to bring up her name. And I'm sorry, I cannot erase my daughter from my heart.
You mean bring up her name, like inquire about her, ask how she's doing, that type of thing?
Yeah, just at all. It's not even in any sentence, in any frame of reference regarding history or past or right.
Not even just asking about her, but just saying her name, like even mentioning it in memory.
Yes.
Not,
no, yes. No. Absolutely.
Which would be real different than asking how she's doing. I wouldn't do that.
So that's the part that, is difficult. But then, the only thing that got me through Mother's Day was the memories that kept popping up, those beautiful, thank you, Facebook and whatever, that kept popping up of just, the love that we have for each other. I don't want to say had because, have for each other. And I'm like, it did exist. It did. It's there. Look.
This leads me to wonder, like, why it is so painful for her and what is so painful for her about this.
Yeah.
Like, what is causing all of this, like, anguish, even with your like existence being brought up, because it's not just an instant thing. It's got to be like this gradual building of things. So it leads me to want to inquire about, like, what, even because such an extreme example of like estrangement, and I see totally where you're coming from. So it leads me to it piques my curiosity a bit.
Jillian, I have a question, if you don't mind, because Cheryl mentioned that her daughter not only estranged her, but other family members that have anything to do with her. My daughter did the same thing. She's in no contact with anybody that has anything to do with me. Can you speak to that?
At least for myself, I can. And yes, I did the same exact thing. My mom, like, right, the night that everything had gone down with like what caused the estrangement, my grandma was there. I had like really felt like she was on my side, like really seeing these things. And one day coming home from school, my dad and I drove by her ranch, and there was my mom and stepdad's cars parked there. And it felt like such a betrayal, because it was like, you saw what I went through. You felt my pain. You were there for it, and you held me when I cried. And yet here you are allowing these people to just sweep it under the rug, act like nothing ever happened without actually acknowledging that something happened. And I think that was what was most painful for me, because I was like you guys are all the same. And that was my extreme thinking, because in those moments of pain, we think really extreme, and like it feels like the world is already against us. So then seeing like even a slight glimmer of betrayal, at least in my opinion, was just the icing on the cake. And I was like, nope, out. And now like I've gotten pretty low contact with my grandma again, simply because like she's wondering why nobody wants to talk to her, but she's also so negative all the time. She's wondering why I don't want to pick up the phone. All she does is talk about my mom.
Okay.
That's very emotionally exhausting for me. I stopped talking to mostly everybody on that side of the family, because it felt like everybody swept what happened to me under the rug, and I wasn't willing to forget it. So I'm not willing to have you guys, not you guys, but them tell me that everything was fine, and just accept these people back into their folds as if like, oh, it's all hunky dory, like, oh, pshaw, you stepped on her toe. Nope, that didn't happen.
I think, our generations, I get it, as a Gen X, that was what we were taught. Just shut up and deal with it. And, oh, you want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about. I mean, you didn't bring your stuff to the table. You just didn't. So I think we maybe live in our own world of, well, isn't everybody just doing this? Isn't everybody just pretending like everything is okay?
Yeah. And that's kind of like, that's kind of like where I was saying that, where now we're reaching the generations that are mindful of mental health and like know how to recognize when we're in mental anguish instead of just like, oh, suck it up. Like, and I mean, my mom even has told me like she'll give me something to cry about in the past, you know, or like going into the bathroom and being like, you better stop. Or if I swear to God, by the time I count to 3, then I'd be like, I don't like that number anymore, you know, like
Yeah.
I don't like number 3,
How many of us have used that one? And
right?
you're on 10, 11, 12.
Yeah. And then I'm like, wait a second. But like, you know, and like, forgive me for using such a harsh word, but like the intimidation of it was always just like, why? You know, and now we're moving into things such as like gentle parenting and like mindful parenting. And like, sure, people who have implemented some of those things, such as yourself, Lisa, are experiencing estrangement as well. And I mean, it's a mixed bag because not only do you have one daughter who doesn't talk to you, but you have one who also talks to you frequently. And, you know, you're doing this work and just relating it back to that man's comment, like sometimes it's really hard to believe when you've spent so many years being told one thing and then like being like, oh, now I've worked on myself. And it's like, yes, but for how long? And I'm going to drop something in the chat to you, Lisa, that I really wanted to share with you guys because I think it will resonate, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but
And I want to clarify, I'm not in the camp of okay, I'm healed now and I want my daughter back. It's through my healing, I recognize my daughter needs to be doing this right now. And I'm gonna say that also as somebody who did this when I was in my 20s as well. I was also so angry at my mom, and there was a time, years that I didn't talk to her. I actually, she forgot my 16th birthday. I understand why now. My parents were just really not in a good place and money was tight and this sort of thing. Moving into my 20s, I had developed a story that my mom never remembered my birthdays. And every year, if a card was late or didn't show up, like, yep, see, this woman doesn't even remember the day I was born. That's how insignificant it was. Well, when I was handing over a lot of my heirlooms that I was carrying for many years before I moved out of the country to my oldest daughter, we were going through a lot of these photos, and photo after photo after photo, I kept seeing birthday parties. And I'm like, I could probably count every single year that not only did I have a birthday party, but I had this great little outfit, this fancy here, this beautiful Cinderella cake or whatever we had. I mean, I developed a story in my 20s that my mom never remembered my birthday, and it wasn't true. And I'm not saying none of your stories are true. I'm just saying I had to get to the realization of I really searched hard to create things around the story, and I found it.
memory is such a funny thing because I mean, we absolutely have like examples like that. And then there's times where you're like, wait, I didn't do that. And people are like, here's this video of you doing it. And you're like, wait, what? And I'm not talking about like crazy party nights. I'm talking about like just normal things.
Yeah. Yeah.
That just happened to Cheryl with Mother's Day. To share that, Cheryl, about how you believe that you were telling your daughter that you never forgot your mom's.
Oh, yeah. My older daughter, because she did a FaceTime, but it's her Mother's Day, you know, like a young mother's with a small child. It's her Mother's Day. And in my mind, I'm like, but the oldest mother is the one that should be getting, you know, the attention. Because this is how I think of with my mom. And so my oldest daughter, she's so practical and so calm, you know, and she's like, Mom, no, when you were young and you had with us and we were, little, that day was for you. It was for you to just relax and rest. And you didn't have to, you weren't on call for anybody. And yes, you called your mom, but you didn't go and drive to see her. And because I was like, I never missed a Mother's Day with my mother. I was always with her. And she's like, you did. But then, but then she brought it around to what my mind could remember and grasp. And she said, Mom, it was when we were older and your mom was older. And guess what? Now, over 65, I'm in that older category. So it's like, thanks for reminding me. But she's like, that's when we would go, when grandma was getting older. And that's, and I was like,
Grandma status.
okay. So I have to wait till then, for you to come and be with me from California. But you're right. Memory is, but also with memory, like, I'm just curious, Jillian, this is in response to what you said, is like when I said my daughter is extreme, like to the extreme of the trauma that she experienced, feels truly that she experienced, and cutting off contact, not letting anyone have contact. Is your first instinct to just believe her and, just believe that it doesn't matter if it happened or not, the way she perceived it did, and that, that I fully deserve all of this, just absolute no contact? Because to me, it seems like sometimes the younger estranged generation, just, it's 100% on the mom. And it doesn't matter, whether, I own the things I did and the hurt. I mean, that's just something that no mother ever believes, that her child would feel hurt by things that they did, or, unintentional, intentional. Mine was
But all of
obviously,
us have. All
right,
of us have been hurt.
all of us. Mine unintentional, but man, it was some deep stuff.
So you're asking if I'm inclined to, I'm just to clarify,
Yeah.
you're asking if I'm inclined to just outright believe somebody when I hear that they've estranged?
Well, because you said it, it must have been some really hard stuff for her to go that drastic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious as to why, and I love when we talk to anybody, we're getting one side of the story. And my first instinct is to, like, and this is going to be such an extreme thing, like, I would rather be wrong and believe somebody who was, and this, please don't take this the wrong way, it's just like a terminology, but I would rather believe a victim who was maybe exaggerating or not, like, or not rightfully hearing something or like taking something to the extreme, than side with an abuser. And that's like taking it super extreme. I'm not calling you an abuser, Cher. Please don't take that.
I know.
Okay. But my instinct as somebody who has been through a lot of stuff in my life is to be like, yeah, I would rather be wrong about believing somebody who has been through something than be wrong about not believing them.
That makes perfect sense to me.
It
Yeah.
does.
So,
Yeah.
a lot of times
Yeah.
I also am of the cognizance that I am getting one side of the story. I'm getting this person's version of it. And like, just like with memory, like you believed that you were always there for your mom's Mother's Day. And then it's like, oh, wait a second. Sure, we have lapses in recollection or lapses in recall. And like, that's not going to change. That's the human condition. But outwardly and outrightly, yes, I will immediately just, you know what? You did what you had to do. And there was reasons behind it. And I'm not one to sit here and judge it for like, oh, that's the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Or like, that's just on God what happened. But yeah, I will sit there and side with people who have been subject to what they would consider and what is considered to a lot of people hard times,
Yeah. I can see both sides, believe me, because, you know, when I was being physically abused and emotionally abused by my ex-husband, and I had bruises and signs, but I didn't tell anyone. When I finally did, a lot of people didn't believe me.
Well, when I finally came forward to like my dad, which is like another reason why I'm like, yes, I will be your advocate. I will be here for you. When I finally came forward to my dad and told him about some of the stuff that like my stepdad was doing that my mom was allowing, they both looked at my dad and were like, oh, you know how she loves to lie for attention. You know how she like really over exaggerates the truth, or how she's such a drama queen. And I was just like, from such a young age, I was told that I was just being dramatic and that I was overreacting, or I was making this up, and like it's not that bad. That now, like, no matter what, I'm like, sure, you think it was that bad? It was that bad. F it. I will never not believe somebody when they say that.
And that's very insightful. And I think coming from your generation who grew up inside the internet, inside the echo chamber, you're seeing all of your friends and their thoughts and everything that goes on in their world. I mean, we did not share our dirty laundry. You did not. And your generation just puts it all out there. So that makes sense. You know, you're connecting to that. Everybody's connecting to it. And now it's kind of like you know, a Me Too movement. I mean, I don't want to go into that, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that now because we're all victims. We've all been on the side of bad parenting. But that is what's been so hard for us who are doing the work. And it's hard work, and we're going through our childhood, and we call it taking the bullet, because we'll never ever be able to have this conversation with our parents. And we wouldn't have dreamed of going no contact with them or letting them die alone. It's just not something that our generations would have done. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying generationally speaking. Okay, I want to share something, the image that Jillian shared, so we can talk about this for the few minutes that are remaining. Before I share this, I want to point out something. So Cher and Dr. Ruth are baby boomers. They were children born after a war. Chances are pretty darn high that their fathers had PTSD and everything that goes along with that.
Yeah.
Their mothers, I just can't even imagine being a woman during that time and trying to hold everything together while your husband, your kid's father, was away, gone, wondering if he was ever coming back. And if there was, I just can't imagine what it must have been like for their mothers. Okay, so we just want to think about, from a generational standpoint, everything getting handed down here. And I want to share this image. It's very impactful. And Jillian, go ahead and tell us about it.
So it kind of goes along with the whole aspect that we were kind of talking about, you know.
Ooh.
Yeah. So breaking the cycle, it ends with you. And like, I think that's why we see such a huge towards cutting off people who have in whatever perception wronged us. And you know, like, especially looking at it from the generational aspect, because of course, like, I'm 100% sure that your fathers had PTSD. I think everybody had PTSD during that time. And, you know, we're moving back into a time where everything is effed again, and we're all just wandering around trying to do the best we can with what we've got. But also staying mindful of the fact that, like, you know, this is also something that we can prevent, because we don't have to take everything out on others. And from my experiences and my knowledge, and I still do this to this day, we usually take things out on the people who are closest to us, who we know that we will be able to apologize to. And we're kindest to strangers, because we don't want to be perceived by others as something that, you know, like this terrible, terrible person. But behind closed doors, the ones that are closest to us, they'll understand. Like, of course, they'll forgive me. Like, you know, it was just a momentary outburst, but then those build and build and build, and we say things that we don't necessarily mean. And to me, that manifested in my mom taking out the like things on me as well, telling me that, you know, she wished she'd aborted me when she was angry, because the only way she knew how to communicate was through that anger. And I got that off of one of the more healthier like echo chambers I revolve in, um called like estranged adult children, which I've seen pretty healthy like interactions on, and like really a lot of compassion coming from this group. And it just like the only thing it said in the post was it can end with you. And you know, somebody said like emotional abuse is an insidious way to murder a soul. I'm proud of every single soul who dives into the depths of their own abyss to take a stand against this atrocity. Cycle breakers are heroes. And to me, that really stood out, because while it may not have been noticed as emotional abuse, as we're coming into this new generation of mindfulness and of acknowledgement, you know, a lot of us are really starting to, and not in a weird way, let's not make this political, but awaken in the fact that like there are things that were not okay that were done to us. And I see that in you folks as well. And not just like my generation, where there are people doing the work to be like, wait a second, that wasn't right. And like I may not have noticed it in the moment, but I see that like things like this happened. And I'm very proud of every single person who wants to take that journey. And once again, bringing it back to that gentleman's comment, like some people aren't willing to do the work. And then there's this group where we're healing things and like open to this discussion and things that are hard to end that cycle.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end.
That was excellent. That was, I took a snapshot of that. That is excellent.
5 o'clock. It is, yeah. I mean, it's that's very impactful. And you know, I think as parents, we have to we want that too, Jillian. We want that too. We just wish we could be included in the celebration as our kids break that cycle.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. But not being the enemy and the villain, but we also broke cycles. My generation broke cycles. The boomers broke cycles.
Yep.
We all did. And I just think we all just really need to acknowledge ourselves. We're doing a good job. We're doing a good job.
I mean,
This past Mother's,
be able to.
what, Jillian?
Without you guys having broken previous cycles, we wouldn't be able to break the one that we're in as well. So, I mean, everyone is a stepping stone, and I think we're just getting better with time. So, you know, in a way, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. At this last Mother's Day, I had the realization that even if I wasn't estranged, I would still feel the way I do. I would still feel like it went way too fast. I wish in the moment that I could have savored every little thing that happened with my kids as they grew up. But I was just a busy mom, you know, trying to juggle so many things and manage so many things. And there were days that were just hairy and, you know, everything else. But even if my daughter didn't estrange me, I would still be looking back on those photos going, where did the time go? If only I could have done everything differently. I would have.